We all know how defensiveness can be very difficult in relationships. And Angus and I had an experience of defensiveness very recently, this past Sunday. And we have maybe a few insights we can share that hopefully will be helpful as you navigate that in your relationships.
We do.
Okay.
Hopefully.
So I will share a little bit about the context of what happened. So, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were walking behind me, walking towards me, going toward me to give me an affectionate cuddle from
I wonder
behind.
what you're doing with your hands there.
What do you think I was doing?
I don't know. It's I
Is
guess
that
the level
accurate?
that your hands are at.
Is that accurate?
I was going in for an affectionate embrace.
Affectionate embrace.
Yes.
And while you were,
Unbeknownst to you.
unbeknownst to me, and while you were moving in for your affectionate embrace, I moved my arm backwards. And as I moved my arm backwards, your thumbnail scraped into my arm in a way that I found very painful. And it felt like it drew blood, but it didn't draw blood. There was just several layers of skin missing. There was a mark. There was definitely a mark.
Okay.
And so when that happened, I was shocked and I was hurting. And I turned around to you and I said, ow, in a really angry way. Is that accurate?
That would be accurate, yes.
And then after I said my ow in a very angry way and looked at you probably with daggers in my eyes.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Vehemence.
Vehemence. I'm going to have to look that one up. Rather than apologizing, what you said was something along the lines of, if I hadn't been moving my arm backwards, it wouldn't have happened, which I felt like you were basically telling me that it was my fault that I got hurt. And I'm not saying that you did it intentionally. And just to remind you, I guess we're not going to demonstrate defensiveness. That's not the point. I can feel defensiveness coming.
Okay. Well, no, there is no defensiveness coming. Although I will say, no. Yes, I came in for what I was anticipating would be an affectionate embrace. You were not aware of my intention and were sort of flailing your arms about in a peculiar fashion, which I wasn't expecting. And then my nail, which I guess was a little too long, gouged your arm. So I think it was my immediate reaction to the look of vehemence, not so much the ow, although in that ow was packaged probably a whole litany of vitriol in my estimation that I couldn't quite decipher, but just I knew it was all bad. So I did probably, in my heart of hearts, probably, would ideally apologise, but I did react to the vehemence in your eyes. But I nevertheless did find myself in this incredibly, well, it was kind of a peculiar situation to find myself in, because on the one hand, I was reacting to the vehemence and taking that very personally. Not very personally, I was taking it personally, shall I say. But I was kind of aware of these sort of like different channels of experience. One was my channel of a human experience where I would take that pace personally based on probably, other situations that we'd had in the past where I probably would react in that way. But then there was this other channel of experience where I'm realizing, I obviously have hurt her. I don't know how badly I've hurt her. But I obviously have hurt her, and she's getting very caught up and reacting from that place, and I don't need to take that personally. And in actual fact, I should just be witnessing her suffering. So from that level of understanding, I could see that, an apology would be forthcoming. From my other level of understanding is like, I kind of like, I don't want to set myself up for humiliation, because if I go in with an apology and she rejects that won't feel very nice. So there was this sort of conflicting experience going on. But nevertheless, at the end of the day, I feel like my wisdom won out, because I allowed myself to sit more in that camp. And from that vantage point, I could see that, really all I have to do is see that she's suffering, see the thing that she's suffering in a human experience, and I don't need to take that personally. If I do take this personally, it will go south very quickly, and we will be in a place that I don't want to be. So I was kind of finding myself going back and forth a little bit, but I kind of pride myself in the fact that I kind of got to higher ground pretty quickly, and from that vantage point, I was able to apologize, albeit it was kind of like there were a few buts along the way, but I got there pretty quickly.
But what's interesting for me is that I wasn't even asking for or needing an apology. Really, when you told me it was my fault or whatever you said, I felt like my hurt wasn't being acknowledged.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that I was wanting you to take responsibility. I know that you didn't do it on purpose, but it was in that moment of defensiveness, it was like you couldn't hear that I was in pain and that I was hurting,
Yeah.
and that I was angry. Even though it wasn't your fault, I just felt angry. I was in my reactivity in that moment.
And I had this sort of experience of being in my ego and being in my higher self, as it were. My ego wanted to just hang on a minute, don't set yourself up for humiliation by making an apology too quickly. Let's at least let her take some of the responsibility. We're both 100% responsible. We know how that works out. And then for me, there was also this opportunity just to see how, that my ego is wanting to be defensive, but that's not really my true authentic self in this experience. My true and authentic self is just, is wanting to have compassion, want to see that you're hurting, let you have that experience, not judge it, and just let it flow through, rather than, going to the other end of the spectrum and being a place of being defended. And so it is, for me, I just, the higher ground would be to hear what you have to say and not feel like there needs to be some sort of rebuttal where I'm expressing my innocence. Really, for me, is to leave the ego alone and come from the higher ground and share from that place, and everything would be fine.
Yeah. And that you can be completely innocent and I can be upset.
You can, and that's how it should be. And yet, my ego, with all the water under the bridge around those kind of experiences, is like, this is what we do in this situation. We don't take responsibility because that'll just set us up for humiliation.
Yeah.
And I can now see how that's just my ego talking. That's just my ego and my human experience that really is just getting me further entrenched in a feeling of discomfort and conflict.
Yeah.
It just feels kind of a little bit alien. So it started to immediately feel alien. For me, that's kind of fresh and new.
Yeah, and hopefully this is helpful to you, because I think this comes up a lot in relationships where one or both people can feel defensive, especially in the face of someone else's upset. And in the past, that would have just gone downhill and taken
quickly.
A long time to recover from. But I really appreciate what you're saying, because when you were able to see that I was just not myself, I'd kind of lost my mind for a moment, you were able to recognize that it wasn't personal. And when you see it's not personal, then there's no defensiveness needed whatsoever.
Yeah. And in a sense, I could see that you were drunk on that shot of adrenaline. And in your inebriated state, I shouldn't be taking this at all personally, because you just kind of lost the plot a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hope this helps, and have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend.